Welcome to the BizDad Podcast, where we dive into the melding of fathership and entrepreneurship with your host, the original BizDad himself, Adam Barr. Adam is a Christian, a former Air Force officer, a dad to 3 amazing kids, a coach, a real estate investor, and a business owner. On this podcast, he'll explore the unique journeys of amazing dads who are striving for greatness in both business and family. So whether you're a dad who is an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply a man striving to be a better dad, get ready as the BizDad brings you conversations to inspire, challenge, and equip you to be a better dad and entrepreneur. And now, here's Adam.
So what's my favorite thing about my dad? So my favorite thing is that even though he's so busy with his job and with other things, he always finds time to to hang out with me and my brothers, or to make time for us.
My favorite thing about my dad, I think that's a hard question to answer. I will say that one of my favorite things about my dad is that I like how he really enjoys to do hard and crazy things, whether that's climb a windmill or drive a 25-foot boat out into 70 miles out into the ocean in a storm, or run 100 miles. He's for all of it. And so I do enjoy that we get to do things like that because he's all for it.
What does my dad do for work? So he is a division manager for a home building company. He manages the New Jersey North division of his company.
What does my dad do for work? I don't know that I could answer that honestly, because if I was answering it honestly, I would say that he does nothing for work, because he seems like he enjoys everything that he does, whether it's being a life coach or building houses.
What do I wish my dad would do more? Probably just relax a little. Like on the weekends, just sit down on the couch and watch some TV for a couple hours. But no, I think he's got a lot going on. So, but yeah, just maybe a little bit of just relaxing. But yeah, thank you.
Something I wish my dad would do more of, I think that's definitely a hard question to answer, but I would say that I think seeing other people's perspectives in the moment is something that I wish he would do more of, because I think if anything, that would be, anytime we have disagreements, would be based around something like that. So that's a hard question to answer.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the BizDad Podcast. Today, I am excited to talk to Pete Mielnik. Really looking forward to this conversation. You and I had a chat on the phone about some of your goals and where you're going. I'm looking forward to kind of seeing where things are and how you're progressing on that. But before we go too far into that, if you can, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about your family and tell us what you do, Pete.
Sure. Yes. So I currently live in Parsippany, New Jersey, which is about 25 miles from Manhattan. Live with my wife and have 3 sons, none of which are with us at the moment. Not that they just don't live here. Born and raised in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Was one of 4. A sister, an older sister, and then a younger brother and sister who were twins. My parents were, they blue collar jobs. My dad worked in an iron foundry. Mom worked in a kind of shipping and receiving warehouse jobs kind of through her life. Super hard workers to put food on the table for us, and did a great job, I think. Spent most of I lived in Lancaster County until I left for college. Really all of my siblings were multi-sport athletes. Ended up being fortunate enough to go and wrestle for Penn State in college. To say that where I am today from growth and having direction and purpose couldn't have been further from the truth when I was graduating high school and college. So went to school in State College, met my wife there, my beautiful, amazing wife. Wrestled all 5 years that I was up there. And again, not a lot of direction. And, as I got near the end of the wrestling career, a teammate of mine introduced me to the home builder that I currently work for. Went to school for criminal justice and sociology, and I've spent my last 22 years in home building.
The match perfectly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, got a lot of value out of the education. But no, so I've worked with them, been very fortunate to work with that company, worn a lot of hats for them. I spent most of my career with them for 17 years back in Southeast PA, outside of Philadelphia. Spent 3 years in Ocean City, Maryland, running an operation for them at the Delaware beaches. And then last year moved up here when an opportunity opened up in this market. We were looking for a place for my youngest son to go to high school. And when we moved to Ocean City, weren't thrilled with the schools there. So we kind of knew that we needed to figure something else out. Ended up putting him in a prep school to redo 8th grade. And he's a big kid, strong kid. And, I think when you redo 8th grade, it causes high schools that look for talent, that recruit to kind of stand out. And he was fortunate enough to get picked up by a private school up here. And now he goes to Blair Academy. So he in a period of about 3 years, we went from all 3 of our sons being in school or being in the house to all 3 being out of the house. Right around COVID, the oldest went away to college. When we were moving down to Ocean City, my middle son, Owen, he left right after high school. He couldn't wait to go out and kind of figure out the world on his own. So graduated high school, moved in with his girlfriend, and then the little guy left last year. So my wife and I, other than the summertime, are mostly empty nesters now.
Yeah, that's a big change for you.
Yeah, you'd never expect it to happen that fast.
Yeah.
But pretty amazing. Very fortunate for where the boys are, the opportunity and the men that they're becoming. I think in the last year for me, really the biggest thing that's changed with my life is I feel like I've just kind of hit this inflection point from a growth standpoint and really started to dial in and find direction and purpose, and find my strengths in leadership, which has allowed me to really change the person I am in so many ways, really, over the last 12 months.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, in that last 12 months, you also joined GoBundance, which is one of those things that'll push you really hard on that front, right? And making sure that you're around all these people that are doing different things, and it gets your brain flowing. Like, what is it that I'm actually doing? Where am I actually at? What is my actual purpose? And it's, if it's not an exercise you've done, it is. It can be an exhausting and daunting thing at first, and kind of feel like you're getting punched in the face. But
you're not kidding. Yeah, my first pod call, I was really impressed by how direct the guys were on the call, kind of challenging each other as they went through a one sheet, and just kind of how they're living their day to day. So it was exactly what I was looking for.
Nice. Yeah, it's always I always try to explain to my wife what it is that I get out of GoBundance. Because sometimes it's not always a financial return. There's definitely an emotional return, a physical return that you get that is not that has nothing to do with the dollar amount that you spend every year to stay in it. And it's it's I'm coming up on 5 years I think now in GoBundance. So it's
awesome.
Yeah, man, what an environment to be around. I tell you, it's been solid.
Yeah, no doubt.
So I want to go into, you mentioned what your mom did. Your mom, you said your mom and dad were both like the hardworking side of the house. I cannot read my shipping. That's what your mom did, some shipping stuff. Your dad in an iron foundry. What was it like? Kind of. I always like to ask about dads, just because as men we look to our dads as we're growing up to kind of understand who we're supposed to be, or in some cases as you get older you realize who you shouldn't be. So it's kind of it can go hand in hand there, a little bit of both. But tell me a little bit about your parents, a little bit more in depth on what it was like for you as a kid, kind of growing up. Who it was like. What did you look forward to with your dad? What did you not look forward to with your dad? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so he was home at 3:30 every day, which he coached, all 4 of us in at different points until we got to like high school. My mom, she was working in, 8 to 3, 30 hours also. I would say back then things were a little bit different, obviously, than they were now. So when we were outside, we were running around.
Mm-hmm.
We come home when it get dark. And when they saw us straying too far from the house, if we couldn't hide as the car came by, we would get in trouble. Great parents, very supportive. I was raised Catholic. My mom became very, very kind of devout Catholic, probably to the point that it kind of pushed me away a little bit. But from experiences with my dad, I think that I think about this a lot, actually. The fact that he didn't wrestle and that ended up being my sport was probably a really good thing, because he was a football player in high school, football player in college, didn't graduate. But, I think when a dad has experience in the sport that they do, it can really impact how you raise your kids and what, kind of how they respond to that.
Boy, I'm rather interested. What do you say it could impact how they respond to it? Tell me what that means to you.
So I've learned a lot from my boys, and I would, my oldest, it's kind of funny. So my oldest, I was raised very much of the mindset: you work hard, get a good job, go to college, get a W-2 job, and save money and retire.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my youngest son, when he was about 12, he ordered the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I said, that's interesting book. Why'd you get that? And his answer was, I want to make a lot of money, but I don't want to work as much as you. And I think, when he said that, I was like, wow, that stings. But, it was like, what, I should probably pick that up and read it myself. I'm pretty sure the first thing it's going to tell me is I shouldn't have just bought this boat when we were down in Ocean City. So my first son was raised very much of the mindset: you work hard, you get a good job, and you just keep grinding. The younger one had the benefit of me kind of learning, from Robert Kiyosaki, and then going on this journey of mass consuming everything I could about building my financial knowledge and the ability to kind of do things through more entrepreneurial ventures and think about things a different way. So the oldest, he's about to graduate, very focused on he was very focused on kind of coming out and getting into a W-2. I think I've kind of caused him to pause and think about that a little bit differently. But the youngest, he is on his own track. He's pretty amazing. This summer he started a surf apparel company, and at 16 he has he designed this surf poncho with a company in like Ireland, all by himself, which was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
But back to your question, I guess I didn't really do a very good job answering it. They're all so smart and really good at giving me feedback. And I think, that directness has come from, my persistence with kind of communication with them. And when the oldest was coming through, because I could see like all the opportunities with wrestling, I really wrote him a lot. Yeah. Right. And it was every match, every practice that I sat in on, right. It wasn't so much good job. You worked hard. It was, you should do this differently, do that differently, do this, and this is going to change things for you. And, he somewhere, I think I started realizing that I had to let other people coach him when he got to high school, but didn't really appreciate it probably till about halfway through college, that it's really hard to be a dad in the sport and just be a dad. And that's what they want.
Yeah.
They'll actually perform a whole lot. Sorry. Their performance and their love of whatever they're doing will go up exponentially if you figure that out soon enough and you're able to make that change with them.
This is something that I've been struggling with. My oldest is 9. He loves golf. Sometimes I wonder if he loves golf just because daddy loves golf, or if he actually really loves golf. But because I love it and he loves it, I'm challenging back and forth of doing all these things, and it's so hard to find that balance of how do I stay being a good dad, but also be a good coach. And I don't know so I've got a buddy of mine that gave me this book. Let me see, it's right here in front of me too. It's called Daddy Caddy on the Bag, to try to teach me how to manage to be a dad and a caddy. And it says in the book, it's very easy to wear one hat. It's very difficult to not switch hats. You want to like, great job, buddy. That was such an awesome hit, because you want to be a good supportive dad. And then immediately put the hat on, switch hats to the caddy and be like, oh, well, what you should have done was move this thing over here they're two separate things, and balancing between those two is so difficult. Man, do you have, selfishly, I'm going to ask you, do you have tips for me on doing a better job of that? Right? You said you didn't realize it until your son was in college, but what sort of tips would you have, or what kind of thoughts do you have as far as how to separate those two when you are sharing the same love of a sport?
I think one of the things that's interesting that has helped me, I think, is so Blair Academy is one of the top wrestling high schools in the country. And I'm around a lot of dads that are very over the top. There's a reason these kids are wrestling at this school and the level of talent. And I think just kind of because Chase had this conversation with me and kind of gave me this realization that, they're generally doing their best. They're gonna thrive better getting feedback from other people. But when I see things with other parents, and I'm having a lunch with them before or after the match, I will kind of try to turn the conversation and talk about the things I've found, but in a way that they can kind of I know that it's going to resonate with them. And I've seen actually that helped change some parents' kind of mindset. When you look around and you see how other parents are talking to their kids, it kind of helps you give some perspective if you step back. For you, I think that, the good news is, at least from my experience, up until they hit puberty, they want to know, they want dad to be the coach.
Yeah.
They want dad to be the coach when they kind of get past that point and they start getting into adolescence and they're figuring things out. That's the point of where you do have to figure out how to step away from it, be there for advice when they ask, but be really thoughtful about how much time you're talking to them about, the details of how you're doing at school and how you're doing, how your golf games go and how your swings went, or whatever the case may be for the sport is that you're talking to them about. Because that's what he told me. He's like, Dad, when we talk, we never really talk about family stuff. It's just it's always about how I'm going to be a better wrestler, or how I'm going to be better. This is where I start to cry when I think about the kids. How am I going to be a better wrestler? How am I going to improve whatever it is I'm doing in college or in school? And it was really eye-opening for me, unbelievably eye-opening, and helped me more so with the second and the third, which, they're so very different. But the good news about them is they are very direct, and it caused us to have a really strong relationship.
Yeah. I think there is such a blessing in the directness and openness of communication that you've created the environment to where your kids will do that and tell you those things, right? Because it's, there are plenty of dads out there, and moms, of course, plenty of parents who've just not allowed that bridge to be opened at all, to be able to have the communication. So now all they're doing is building up resentment and anger inside, as opposed to having the conversation and say, hey, I'd really just want to talk about et cetera, whatever it is, and you created at least the relationship that allowed that opening to be there. And that's something I strongly encourage every dad to do, right? Society as a whole if we take our cues from society on what it means to be a man, or what it means to be a dad, or what it means to be whatever, I think we're constantly going to be failing. It's just it's either you're either going to be a uninvolved, distant man that they've heard about before, or you're going to be an overbearing whatever. And there's just, man, I think communication to me is one of the number one things to be able to have. If your kids can't communicate with you and be open with you and honest with you, then like, what else is there? I mean, really, like it all starts right there.
100%. Yeah.
How do you
It
think
is.
oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Now, how do you think you created the relationship to be one where they feel that comfortable being that open and honest with you?
I think a lot of it has come out of, so my life trajectory really changed when I found Audible and started listening to
Mm-hmm.
audiobooks. And when I went to Ocean City, I took over the operation down there in southern Delaware for my company. I had a lot coming at me, and it was new market, new environment, new people. And I started realizing that whatever challenge I was dealing with, I shouldn't be doing this, but on my drive to work in the morning, I could speak into my phone, find me audiobooks with how to work through, having challenging conversations with people.
Yeah.
Crucial Conversations pops up. I have somebody talking right to me. So I think that I've always prioritized like trying to be a better communicator with them and forcing them to spend time talking to me,
Mm-hmm.
even when, I probably was failing in kind of my listening ability. But I think that the audiobooks more than anything and just learning different perspectives, how to communicate really helped me kind of open that door. And scheduling time just to force sit downs and conversations, when something's going on, when want to talk to them about something. And I think, they certainly worked hard growing up and they're not like other kids. They're phenomenal athletes, super hard workers, just couldn't be more proud of them. But their drive and their confidence, and I just think it was the way that they were raised, to be responsible, to always work hard, do things the right way, and stand up for yourself or others when the need arises. I think those were probably kind of the earlier kind of pieces that I tried to instill in them. My wife and I tried to instill in them that maybe put them where they are today, but later in life, it was more so just, I would try to set up times when things weren't going well. I would set up times to talk with them where we would just sit down and chat, and it'd go in a whole bunch of different directions, but I would get some perspective from them. Now, the last year or so with journaling, it's been a game changer for me. I don't know. Do you journal, Adam?
I no. So I've done it a handful of times, and it's great every time I do it. But it's getting myself into a consistent habit of doing it. I tend to do it like, man, I'm on an airplane right now. I'm flying somewhere, and my family's not around. I'm just gonna like get some things off of my brain and start to write it down. And then all of a sudden, I'm like 7 pages in, and I'm like, this was wonderful. Like, but I just can't. I don't know. Like, I just haven't built it into like the habit of doing all of that. It's been tough, but I know that it's been extremely helpful for me before, so I do need to get into that habit for sure.
Well, you know what's interesting, and I think most people that get into it kind of feel the same way when they get started, and they don't know really what to put in there. It's hard to like the consistency. So I started trying to journal in like the fall of 2022 and got better at it through 23 and started to become like daily by like July of last year.
Nice.
Read a book called The 5 a.m. Club, which changed my life. And what I've found from journaling, and this is absolutely no exaggeration, it is the most powerful tool you will ever use. And the reason is not so much because you can get it out of your head and put it down, is in the 5 a.m. Club, the author talks about, draw a blank on his name, a weekly design strategy where on Sunday you sit down, you read your week, you read about yourself, and then you write a little story about what went well and what you learned and what you could do, way you can handle things differently. Your wife, your kids, your family will love it because you learn so much about yourself when you read it back on Sunday. Like you're like, oh my God, my wife's been telling me this for years, and I've always been certain she's wrong. And I have to go apologize because the emotions out of it once you read it back to yourself, and it is game changing. The one thing I will not miss is spending the hour reading my journal, and the amount of gold that I pull out of it every week is unbelievable. And it took 2 years to get here, but I've had other people that I do a little bit of mentoring work and coaching on the side, just for friends and some people that I'm close with. And to hear them go from, yeah, I don't really know what I would put in there and it seems silly, to like the way they gush about it, I am 100% certain it is like the secret to enlightenment. It is unbelievable.
Love it. Yeah. And I think that there's two parts to that. One, so you're saying there's a chance. I have a chance still that I could actually make this journaling thing happen. But another thing I was picking up on. Yeah. One thing that I really loved that you were saying is, like, when I asked you how you think you built that relationship, it wasn't like, oh, well, I mean, I've been just this great communicator since they came from the womb, and I've been talking to them since they were in utero. Like, it was, no, like, you realized that there was something you needed to work on, and you started doing it, and you started working on it, and you got better at it. And it's one, like, so many people think that, especially if you either have a fixed mindset or you have a growth mindset, and clearly you have a growth mindset. It's not like, well, this is just the person I am, and this is what I'm going to be. It's no, this is I'm seeing there's something I could do better here, and I'm going to go and work on it and grow and become better at it, become a better communicator, become a better dad, become better at being open and honest with my family. And like, that's something that I tell my son all the time, and I've said it probably 50 times on this podcast. It's like, I've never been a dad to a 9-year-old before, and he's never been a 9-year-old. So I have to learn how to do this better, and he has to learn how to do it too. And we're going to learn together, or we're going to figure it out, right? I'm going to find tools that are going to help me be a better dad. He's going to find tools that are going to help him be a better 9-year-old. And then when he turns 10, well, now I got to figure out how to be a dad to a 10-year-old. Like, because I've never done that before either, right? So I got to figure all this out. So
yeah, there are no directions. And when you when you get to the point of where you're 20 years in, 22 years in, you look back on a lot of things and you just cringe at the way that you handled them, the things that you said or did. But man, you can't really regret it, right? You're doing the best you can. You figure out how to move forward, and you just keep learning and growing. Like you said, that growth mindset is everything.
Yeah. And I try to explain to people, because they're like, I don't know why my sister is so much different, or why my second kid is so much different than my first. And they're like, every child, they're like, they're growing up in the same house. I'm like, they're absolutely not growing up in the same house. Like, you're not the same person as you were when you had your first kid as to when you had your third kid. Like, you're just not the same person. And that's not the same house anymore, because now there's another dynamic. They're learning from their older siblings. They're getting different direction from you on where you are, because every one of us is changing. It's just, are we choosing to change the direction we want to change, or are we just letting life change us the way that we want it to change us, or the way that it wants to change us, I should say. Like, we have That's a choice in this matter, and it's and that doesn't mean, I hope nobody hears that, well, that just means my first kid is screwed. No, that doesn't mean your first kid is screwed. Like, you've got the ability to change what's going on with that relationship too. So, I don't think there's ever a time, and it's also one of the reasons I ask about people's dads, is because there's some folks that, well, I haven't talked to my dad in 15 years because of X, Y, or Z reason. Like, there is never a reason. I shouldn't say never. Never say never, never say always, right? But there's very rarely a reason not to try to build that relationship back up again. Not that it's going to be like this wonderful, running through the fields with my dad, father-son relationship, but like, you don't know how much longer you have with your dad. You don't know how much longer you have with your kids. Like, why spend another day? Why spend another minute where it's not going towards the betterment of each other as opposed to the detriment of each other,
Yeah, that's right. One of the things that I found, and I have a weekly accountability list of things that I do that just are so meaningful. And in there is call my dad, call my mom, make time to talk to my grandmother, call one of my siblings, like every week, so that I don't let it slip. I don't forget about it. And it makes a big difference in building those relationships, making them stronger, because as your kids get older, your life gets so freaking busy and you're chasing them all over the country to sports and different things. It is really hard to stay connected to the rest of the people in your life that are so important to you.
For sure. Yep. And it's important. I try to go back up and visit my sisters all the time up in New York. At least once a year, I want to get back up there and see them. For the most part, it happens, or I try to get them down here, one thing or another. But my parents now live about 35 minutes away from me, which is something that I've never had before since I've been an adult. Wow. I've never lived close to my family because I joined the military right out of high school and I was gone. But it was like one of those things where, like, having family close, it means a lot to me, And now my mom is feeling it a lot with her she's now had 2 siblings that have passed, and it's like, man, like I can't get those back. We need to have these annual meets. We need to have these phone calls. We need to have these conversations, because it's just that time of life now. This is going to be the norm for a little while, and that's not where you want to realize that you left something out, you know, that you should have followed up on, you know.
The sooner you figure it out, the better. God, there's so much of that, and there's so much good information out there about like just the importance of it, right? And like the family board meeting, and what that helps us realize about our kids. And on our pod call the other day, I think one of the guys was saying that by the time your kids graduate high school, you've spent 95% of the time you're going to spend with them.
Yeah.
And I think it's even more of a stretch when you think about that. When they get to high school, you're at like 90%. So like once they hit their teenage years, they really don't want to hang out with you that much, and it's okay. Figure out how to keep that connection with them, still be their parent, and be prepared for the problem solving to come. Because one thing I know for sure is that the problems do not get easier as they get bigger.
Older. No kidding. Yep. Oh, there's one of my guys right
What's
there.
What's up, big man?
Nope. I'm
Looks
getting
like
another one
to take over.
sneak in. What's up, Rourke? What you got, buddy?
Hey, Rourke.
Oh, here we go. I told you it was
going
to happen.
Golfer?
Nah, well, he's starting to think about wanting to be a golfer. He's the 5-year-old. He's we built a simulator in the house, so we've got one in the garage now, and they like to be out there playing it. He's the golfer. There's Adam. He's a big-time golfer. Rourke is thinking about being a golfer. He's not positive yet if that's what he wants to do. But these guys... Go ahead.
What were you saying? I was going to say, funny that you mentioned that in your book. So my dad, my grandfather, they were big golfers. My dad was just, whenever we went, his only coaching for me is, if you stop trying to kill it, you're going to play better. And my golf game was terrible. I got so frustrated with this being the coaching every single time we went out. And I hated golf for years, until I never really took my sons golfing until my youngest started getting an itch for it and we started learning. Turns out my dad was probably right. But just again, like you were just saying, I spent 18 years probably hating golf because of just the way that the interactions when I was younger with my dad playing golf and not wanting to listen to him.
Yeah. And that's, if only our kids would realize we know what we're talking about and they should listen to us, right? Yes, I do. Sometimes. Sometimes.
That's an interesting statement, Adam. What do you got? Your nose is in the iPod case?
Okay. Pinching my nose. Interesting statement. Go ahead.
So, and I think back to a time, so when we were in Southeast PA, my son was getting ready to go to high school. We were in Downingtown, and Downingtown has this school called the STEM Academy. It's the highest ranked public school in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has really good schools, and it's a science, technology, engineering, and math school. It's really rigorous. And he was debating whether or not to go there. And I remember taking him, took him out to a restaurant in town to have a conversation with him. And we had that conversation like as a way for me to try to connect with him, that, think about all the stuff you learn, this year. Think of a couple of examples of things that that he learned or picked up on. Now imagine add 25 years to that. And when we're chatting about these things, and not trying to force you to do these things, but trying to get you to really to think about them. That's one way to help them kind of take a step back and pause, is by kind of trying to remind them how much they learn every day. Did I lose you? Back? Testing?
I don't know what just happened. My son stole one of my headphones, and I think it took my audio.
I can hear you.
Well, now I'm definitely going to have to edit something. There we go. I got you back. Now I got to get my son to give me my other headphone back. I'm so sorry. 1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
Adam! went outside with it. What a little punk. It's like, where did he go? Like, he just walked out.
Where else would you take your headphones?
He's like, I didn't know it would do that to you. Yeah. Right in the middle of my podcast, you little punk. Man,
Getting some good audio of him out in the yard with the dogs.
Yeah,
no
kidding, right? All right. Now I lost track of where we were. All right, boys, let me keep on recording. Okay, guys, get back to doing what you got to do. You don't know how to do your math? Well, find something else. We'll do math afterwards. We will do it after. Let me finish this, and then I'll help you. You can find something else, or you can go take a break. Okay, bud? Go ride around the block with your brother before it starts raining. If you guys want to, go for it. Can we jump in the pool? This is going to be great, like B-roll to roll in. It's just me chatting back and forth with my boys.
There you go.
All right. Well, now they've stepped out. So almost every podcast they manage to make a thing, unless of course they're out at like a trampoline place or something. You know, because I do homeschooling, so they're always around.
Wow, you do you do the homeschooling?
Yeah.
How's that go?
It goes.
Yeah.
You know, the reason I started it is there's a couple reasons. One is my oldest is in 3rd grade and he was working like 45 hours a week with school stuff. And I was like, how are you working a full-time job worth of hours?
Right.
And then you're in 3rd grade. It's like, this doesn't make any sense to me. And 2, I left the military because I want to be around you guys. Because I was being sent somewhere all the time. But now you're working a 45-hour school week. And then the rest of life is going on. I get you, to your point, when you were talking about 95%, like I get you for very little time every day. Yeah. And then you're gone. And then when I need to go travel somewhere, whether my company's putting on a conference or whether I'm going to look at a property or whether I'm whatever, I got to beg the school for you to go with me and then get all the paperwork. And then you got to be doing school the entire time we're on paperwork or we're on leave anyway. So it's like, oh man, this is just not optimal. So
yeah, it's like the roles are reversed. Like the dad that's usually the one that's kind of tied up with the business, and the kids are waiting for dad to come home the other way around now. That's crazy. It's
I work from home, so they get to see me work a lot, and they complain about the fact that I'm in front of my computer all the time. But it's one of those like you're only complaining about it because you're here to see it. You know, you wouldn't be complaining about it if you were at school, again, 40 hours a week. You would never notice that I was working a lot because I'd be working while you're there. Yeah. But now, you just get to see it. And but it is going well. Like last year, I don't know, we went on like 3 or 4 different road trips. We did a road trip up to the Philly event up in New Jersey. And then we did another road trip the beginning of this year in January up to Vermont for the winter event up there. My company, we did our conference in San Antonio last October. So we did a road trip to San Antonio. Like we just drove all over the country, got to drive, like do all sorts of different things that they would have never been able to do if it wasn't for homeschool. So
that's awesome. Good for you.
So the good is definitely outweighing the bad. That is for sure.
And you're getting to relearn all the stuff that you learned when you were in grade school.
Yes, and thankfully I've got them in programs where I actually know the stuff, right? It's not like this Common Core math or something that I have no idea how to do. Like I get to actually do, what I call real math. But yeah, it's there was a couple times where he'll come at me and he's like, this past participle, and I'm like, 1 second, let me look that up real quick because I don't remember what a past participle is. Like.
Thank God for Google.
So that's Google helps me do some teaching, that's for sure. And I got a whole bunch of books over here for being to show me how to teach things that I don't know, and got videos for other stuff. It's been pretty good. I've been enjoying it. They went to the coffee shop with me this morning. Sat next to me at the coffee shop. I was working. They were working. I'd stop and help them out with something. We ran outside and did suicides with street signs. And
perfect.
They were like, what's it? So let's get up. Let's go somewhere. So it was good. We've been enjoying it for sure.
Good for you. That's awesome. Such an incredible opportunity.
My wife retires next year, and I really look forward to her retiring and being able to sit here and help with this. If for no other reason than, to your point, it is such a great opportunity to just I get to connect to them on a different level than I think I ever would have if they were in school all day, right? And I I'm still working on doing a better job of curating the people I want them around, right? Like I want us to have a couple really solid families that we could just hang out with and know that they're getting fed the same way, like that their parents have the same mindset we do, the same growth mindset, the same positive outlook on life, and the same desires for their kids, so that I don't care what the age groups are, as long as they're semi within 5 years of each other. Great, go, like have fun, go and learn and grow with each other, and the parents, we can get together and learn and grow with each other. There's a couple couples from church that we just had over the weekend, and one of the couples has 6 kids and another one has 2 kids, but they're younger. But I was like, we need to do this more often. Like, you guys come over whenever the heck you want to. All the kids can play in the pool. They can go play in the backyard. They could do whatever. Like, it just go forth and be kids and enjoy the time, because you all have the same thought process and mindset, and it's a beautiful thing.
That's great. Yeah, the people that you surround yourself with is just so incredibly important. For me, when we moved to Downingtown, we were fortunate to have this big 12-acre piece of property surrounded by these other larger properties, and there were some really cool neighbors that we had there that we're still really close with. And my oldest, he was probably 12 at the time. He wanted to find something to do for work. I was like, you know what, go over and talk to Scott, see if you can get a job working with him in his landscape company, because he was building a wall on the other neighbor's property. They're all like high school friends, and these guys are in their 30s, and Chase is 12, and super hard worker. They have great stories of like when he gets there and he asks, and they start letting him tag along. Next thing you know, he's traveling with them to drought jobs all over Philadelphia. Nice. They never call. They're wondering if they should have asked his parents if he's allowed to come, but it like spoiled him, because now he has these super tight bonds with these guys that are my age. He struggles to connect with kids his own age, because like he just loves this older crew of people, really good people that he grew up with.
And I think that anytime that people talk to my kids, they're like, your kids are so well spoken and well behaved and all this stuff, and I'm like, it's because they're used to talking to adults. I don't talk to them like they're kids. Other people don't talk to them like they're kids. We just talk like they're always around various age groups. They're not stuck in just their circle. They get to communicate really well with other folks. Like it's awesome. It's fun to watch. Do they miss out on some kid stuff? If people want to say it's missing out, sure, you could say it's missing out. But I think that they're exposed to so many other different things that it's not actually missing out. I think they're getting a much more well-rounded and realistic view on what life actually is and what it means to work hard and understand where you're going and pushing hard. Like they're doing pretty well for themselves. I love watching it. Now,
very cool. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Now, before we started talking about this, because some of like me chasing my kid down with a headphone, so we're going to edit that part out. So you're just coming back in on this a little bit ago. I had to chase my kid down because he stole my headphone. So before that, you had just started getting into something, and forgive me, like I lost my brain when he left with my headphone. Can you, if you can, go back to whatever we were talking about there?
Yeah, I was just thinking, because you had asked me how I figured out how to communicate with my kids, and I could tell early in high school we were really Chase, the oldest, was really rebelling. His mom would pick him up from wrestling practice, and we lived 2 miles from the school. At 1 mile, she would throw him out of the car and make him walk home, because we were just really butting heads. And I think I used to put a lot of pressure on them. Like, I think one of the things I've heard on your other podcasts that made me think a little bit is we all want our kids to be better than we are, and we kind of put up. So for me, like when they were coming up through wrestling, I'm like, listen, you guys could be world champions if you want. If you look back as an adult, and I do, like when I think about my college wrestling career, and the regrets that I have, I kind of put them on my children, or tried to, like, with the right intentions, just explain, like, let's try to do this where you guys don't end up with the same regrets. Yeah. But at the same time, you kind of create this situation where you're creating this maybe unreasonable expectation for them of what level of commitment that they should be expected to put out for something that they may or may not love. And that's really that's something that I think as I've gotten older, I've really started to reflect more on. And I think that I was super guilty of it. Whenever we were at tournaments, talking to them about goals, like why not set? I saw a video where this Kerry Colott wanted to be when he was 8 years old, he wanted to be a world champion. His dad said, all right, I'm going to help you get there, but you're not allowed to quit on me. And then later in the video, his dad's shocking him with a cattle prod when he can't get off the bottom.
Oh,
so
jeez.
Taking it to the extreme. But, in my mind, I'm thinking, it starts with like setting the right goals and then helping them figure out how to get the drive.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found was when we went to Ocean City, I had this new job, super busy, wasn't nearly as involved with Kale, my youngest, and wrestling. He connected with, the older high school team. He was in middle school at the time, and this really good coach down there. And I was stepped away from it completely. And he really fell in love with the sport and got this hunger and this drive that I always wanted to see in the others. But I think that I kind of killed it because of the way that I interacted with them through high school. So as I started to realize that, it helped me continue to pull back more and realize that they're going to figure things out. They're certainly going to emulate you, right? And whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, you're going to see yourself in them as they get older. You probably do now, and it's going to continue to manifest all of the good habits and the bad. And they're going to come to you when they need help. But the better you can do it, letting them figure out their own way and find what they love, the more likely you will see them achieve the success or the life that you hope that they achieve. I think that's the biggest takeaway that I've really had over the last couple of years.
Yeah. The fact that I could see myself in them is both a wonderful thing and a terrible thing. It's wonderful because I know I've got an idea what they're going to be doing, and terrible because, man, do I have an idea of what they're going to be doing. And it's like, golly, the kids have such a way of walking around with little mirrors on them. And the second you're like, hey, what do you do? And then they turn around and you see yourself standing there and you're like, oh man, did I teach you how to do that? Like, what am I doing? And like my wife and I are both perfectionists, and we're seeing it a lot in the kids. Like both of them, if they don't do things exactly the way that, like, we'll be on the golf course and my son will hit like a 170-yard drive right down the middle. It's beautiful. I'm celebrating, and he looks at me and he's like, that's not where I wanted it to be. I'm like, you are in the middle of the fairway, 170 yards down, and you're 9. Where is it that you wanted to go? And he's and this is a tongue-in-cheek answer, but like 3 square inches to the left. That's where I wanted to be. It's like that level of perfectionism, and I'm like, oh my goodness! Like how do I work through this? I don't have the tools in my toolbox to work with this. I don't know. Like because that's how I am. Like it, especially when I'm driving and really want to be good at something. I want it to be exactly how I want it to be, and if it's not, I got work to do. I need to do it. But in golf, I understand that like professionals are in the rough all the time. Like it's part of what it is, you know?
Yeah. It's so interesting that you say that. And I think that's one of the areas for me that I know that has really helped improve the relationship with my wife as well as with my kids, and probably made me a better leader, is starting to accept that to really make things happen and get things to where I want them to go, is I need people to kind of to be able to do things their way and try and fail and not and be okay with it not being my way. And that's been a game changer, I think, with my wife over the last year, especially. It really is a hard habit to break, and it's something that my oldest Chase is really like. He is such a perfectionist that all growing up, whenever they were outside doing chores, the other 2 would come in screaming that he like threw a log at them, told them to get away because he didn't want to work with them. He wanted to do it all himself. Yeah. And it'll be the toughest thing for him that he has to kind of overcome moving forward, because he's going to have to be able to accomplish his goals through other people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's it. It's, would you say, how would you say that has kind of worked out for him now, going through college, doing all this stuff? And like you mentioned that his thought process, if I recall correctly, has sort of been kind of shifting, but his initial thought was more along the lines of what you were doing, was getting a good job, get a W-2, that type of stuff, that type of thing. Where do you think that he's leaning towards now, especially as you're seeing him kind of grow into himself?
So it's interesting because like it was probably 18 months ago, where he had the conversation with me that, Dad, all you ever want to talk about is like wrestling and what I'm doing wrong or what I should be doing better and how I can do better at school. And I really backed off at that point, and it stung, but it really became apparent. And, the thing I think I realized the most is the pressure on them in the sports. They don't need their dad critiquing them, especially when they're wrestling in like the Big Ten conference and they're on TV. And this makes me a little emotional, but they're on TV, probably tens of thousands of people potentially watching, maybe not, but thousands of people, and things aren't going their way.
Yeah.
The last thing they need is their parents giving them shit about it. So
yeah,
I think that was eye-opening. So as I've backed away, he's really he's come to me when he has questions. He's listened to a lot of the books that I've recommended that he listen to. And I think that as they've seen me change, they've picked up on those things. They've all started kind of listening to the different audiobooks. He is, in his mind, he is a combination of Jocko, David Goggins, and Cam Hanes. That it doesn't matter. He can just go do it. I ran a marathon in May and asked him if he wanted to pace me. He said, I'll just do the whole thing with you. I was like, but you haven't trained. He's like, it doesn't matter. David Goggins can run 100 miles. I can run a marathon with you. And he did it. So, but he's shifted now. He's actually just read the book Buy Then Build. Cause I was saying, listen, buddy, I'm really a good place right now. And you have all of the pieces to be able to go and find something. And I can help you. I can help you kind of get it, not necessarily doing it. And I think the thing that we talked a lot about when this idea came up was, I can help kind of with the financial component to get it going, and I can be here for advice. But it's really important that we agree that if you feel me trying to tell you what to do, that's a problem, right? You need to come to me, tell me when you need help and what you want to brainstorm on. And that's and that's where we should really try to focus. And the thing I know about him is that he's really good about being, he'll take, if something doesn't go the way he wants it to, he'll take a couple of days to reflect on it, and he'll come back and share with me whatever it was, how it made him feel, and like how he thinks about it. And it's just so powerful, really powerful conversations. So yes, finally stepping back, all of the things that I could have ever dreamed of for him seem to be coming true. So it's pretty cool. That's
so awesome. Yeah, I try to tell people all the time that my goal in life, and eventually I'll write the book on this, but is I kind of look at my kids as my own little businesses, and right now I'm the CEO of them. And then when they become 18, my goal is that I just become a board of advisors. To your point, like if I shouldn't be directing you on how to live your life anymore. If I've done a decent job up till now, you've at least got the tools in your toolbox to go and figure it out. And when you're at a point and you're like, hey, I'm really not sure I'm using this miter box correctly. Can you help me with that, right? You pull out this tool from your toolbox. You're like, I'm just not sure that I'm doing this right. Give me a call. I'm here for you. I'm here to help you out, right? And I want to be a board of advisors, not a board of directors. I need you to just come to me when you need help, not telling you what to do. I
love that. And so good.
It's difficult to do that, and you can see it in I've seen it in my parents and various different things. I've seen it in other people's parents and the way that they still feel like they have to control what's going on. It's like, no, like even in the Bible, it talks about like a man will leave his house. Like, I'm gone. Like you're not like, do I still respect you and honor you? Yes. But that doesn't mean that you get to tell me what to do anymore. That's not like, I'm past that. And I don't want to do that for my kids. I don't want to be the dad that is like, well, what you should be doing is like, no, what you should be doing is living your life. You and your wife, you talk about what you need to do. And then, with my daughter, you and your husband, you talk about what you guys need to do. Like, that's not on me. If you need some help, ask me. Other than that, I'm going to go live my life and enjoy myself. You go do your thing.
Good for you.
But hopefully I stick to that. Like, my oldest is 9, so give me time. Don't say good for you yet. Like, I've got a long time before I actually have to eat those words that I'm saying. So,
but you know what? The good news is you get to spend a couple hours every week having these philosophical conversations that can only lead to you becoming like the best dad ever. Just listening to the other podcasts you've had, it's really powerful conversations that you're having, and there are no directions, and you are going to make some monumental mistakes, right? But like just being able to recover and have those conversations and know that, you get to a point of where they will come to you. I actually thinking back, I think the reason Owen left the house as quickly as he did after high school was like we would, as I started to become more financially secure, we were paycheck to paycheck for a long time. I would use what I had almost as leverage with them, and it was really like looking back on it, really was not good. But trying to get them to do what I wanted them to do, and tying it like financial incentives to it in different ways. And the best thing that he did was leave, and he's just such a different, amazing man today because of it. And I always go back to the journaling and just hearing the conversation that you had or that we were just having and thinking about like your sons. I was at a meetup in New York last Wednesday with a bunch of GoBundance dads, and there's these two young private equity guys standing there, and then me and another gentleman that's probably in his 50s, and like we start talking about like this growth curve that we've been on, and the young private equity guys are like, oh my God, that's what we want. And like me and this I've drawn a blank on his name. He lives out on Long Island. We're talking about, and then like the concept of journaling comes up. I was like, oh my God, you have to journal? And he's like, I wouldn't miss it for a day. Right. So he's there, he sees it, he uses it. And these younger, 20 something guys from GoBundance are sitting there listening to this whole conversation, like just kind of like smiling, just kind of seeing this kind of riff going back and forth. But what he told me, the reason I brought this up is that he said when his kids were little, he would journal for them so that they had the stories to read when they grew up. And now they all journal. And I was just thinking, like, there's one thing that I found that I believe in more than anything. It's the power of using that journal, and like the way we just talked about. And I can't imagine if my kids had those in their hands, like in your situation, and they were able to write about their week and read about it, and how that would have changed them as well. Because you will see so quickly if you can get into that cadence of just it doesn't matter what you put in it, just putting something in it and then reading it on Sunday, how much you learn every week. And it helps you to answer all those questions and be such a better person.
I love the concept of journaling with the kids and helping them kind of journal and everything. So it's I've got a buddy of mine that he's up in near where you are, but his son is really good at golf. He's a year and a half older than my son. I think he just turned 11. But he's his goals are to be in the top 20 in the world for junior golf within like the next year. So and he's got a pretty good shot at doing it. His dad's really good at golf, and he was on the podcast, I don't know, maybe quite a few episodes ago. But his son is really good at golf, and he bought my son this book that helps him kind of work through the mental game, and like spots for you to journal and write about what you're thinking about throughout your golf game and all this stuff. And it's like, man, how much journaling can actually help you. And I say it all the time, and I know that it means something, and I need to do it. And one thing we recently started doing, and as you're talking, I'm thinking of how to implement this into my life. But we recently, I don't know, maybe a couple months ago, really started like every dinner we give our highs and lows up for our day, so we could talk about our day a little bit, like what was bad today, what was good today, like let's just talk through anything that's going on. And then one day a week we'll go over our family values. I've got it up next to our dinner table, and like, okay, well, you tell me what you saw somebody in the family with the family value, like what adventure or resilience. Like tell me something that happened this week that represents one of our core values from somebody else in the family. Not something you did, but something you saw in somebody else, right? So then they could talk about that. But then, when you mentioned the journaling, I'm thinking to myself, what a great thing to be able to get done with that dinner, and then go and write in our journal now. Like, let's go sum up our day in our journal. Or, hey, maybe in the morning we do that, and then we could discuss it at dinner or something. Like the implementation of having the journal for the kids is awesome. I love that thought process. I'm going to have to figure out how to fit that into our day and put that as part of what we do.
Yeah, it is. I have a team of about 40 people that work for me right now, 9 managers. And a day doesn't go by where I'm not telling one of them or asking them, did you start yet? Because it's just one of those things that 6 months from now, when you get that person to finally, and sometimes I drag these folks kicking and streaming into the different things I want them to do. I know that 6 months from now, they're going to look back and say, oh my God, this has been life-changing. Yeah. And that's really one of those things. So yeah, very cool.
Love it.
And I was thinking, like, one of the podcasts I listened to the other day, just kind of taking things away. Let me see what the guy's name was. Really good guest. He was from Hawaii. It might have been one that you just recently released. Um,
Jay Borgana.
Russell Kimura.
Oh, Russell Kimura. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
he had that thing about the shield, where you say something nice about people on their birthday.
Yeah.
What was it? The Shield of Honor exercise. Man, what a powerful exercise that sounds like. I listened to it yesterday, and I'm like, you know what? My wife's birthday's in 2 weeks. We're doing Shield of Honor for her.
Love it.
She's gonna love it. Finally gonna get a birthday present right for her, and then I'm gonna start doing it at work with the management team.
No,
It's just
I
so
loved
good.
that when I heard it, and I'm glad you reminded me of it because I almost forgot that I forgot about that. That's a like what a blessing to be able to give to somebody and be able to share that with them. You know, just to love on them for a moment. And man, yeah, I think you're gonna get that gift right. I think that one's gonna go well. So when's the birthday? So I know when to follow up with you.
The 23rd, September 23rd.
Oh, okay,
So,
boy, soon. Yeah, like a week and a half. My wife's
Yeah.
September 15th, so
Oh, wow.
we'll be going out on a date this Friday, and then have some family over for her birthday. So that gives everybody listening now an idea of when we actually record versus when it gets released, right? But
There you go. Yep.
but
Date stamp it.
yep, exactly. But really, my wife and I have kind of been like, what do we do for birthdays anymore? Really? I mean, like, is there really but something like that? Like that's what a perfect thing to be able to actually give and be able to celebrate. And I should build something out this week before that.
Yeah, it's been for me. I've always failed at trying to figure out birthdays for her. I failed her in a lot of ways. It's amazing that she's still here, but I think in the last year, like I've said, really made good progress. I think I'm getting a little better at the gift idea because I spend a lot more time thinking about it. Because I do. I've always my family was always big gift givers, and they spend time thinking about it. And I'm not a big fan of what do you want for your birthday, right? And going and buying somebody something. But the that Shield of Honor is a phenomenal idea for it.
Yeah. When in doubt, go for the heart. Like
That's
it's
it.
always a good
Yeah.
route to go. Whatever gets the feels, you know.
Hmm.
So do you have are any of your kids doing the journaling as well? Have you gotten them doing that?
Chase does it now. Owen has been off and on. I was really proud. So I do something that I guess I call it whiteboarding. It kind of came out of David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me, with his accountability mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started taping. I have a sticky note to my mirror and like with the big thing that I'm focused on. And then it became like the sticky note was the 3 big rocks I have for the year. And then somewhere around then I listened to Atomic Habits and realized that, any habit, you can break or change any habit about yourself if you're just like, if you find a way to really kind of keep it in front of you. So I have a whiteboard in my bathroom, which is a 30-day calendar. And over the last 12 months, I've broken so many lifelong bad habits with this whiteboard that it's another one of those tools that I use that just kind of changed my life. And I was so proud. The other day we were packing Kale up to take him back to Blair and pulling all the stuff out of the truck to take into his dorm. And sure enough, there's a whiteboard that he has that he's following and doing the same thing. So they do pick up different pieces of it. They see what I'm doing.
Yeah.
They, Owen, the middle one, has started. He was, he's always been a little bit different from his brothers. They're all so different, but he didn't wrestle, which made him feel kind of left out from the group a little bit. Ended up being like a superstar pole vaulter, which was great because I didn't know how to coach that. I could just sit there and be a dad. But he, he's always had like allergy issues and different things. Super athlete, super physically fit. But recently he's really kind of struggled with like just getting to bed early. Like he was, I don't know if he was overdoing it with his inhaler or whatever. But just in the last like 3 weeks, he's told me that he started getting up at before 5 a.m. every day. And when I read the 5 a.m. Club, I started, that was one of the habits I put on my whiteboard. I'm going to get up before 5 a.m. every day for 66 days. And I don't want to get up before 5 on Saturday and Sunday, but I'm going to do it and see what it's like at the end of it. And it's changed my life. And now I do it consistently, unless I'm out traveling really late and I just need a couple extra hours. 7 days a week I'm up, and he has started doing that also. So again, that they pick up the pieces that they like from what they see. Now that I've gotten better at kind of stepping away and just being there to for counseling when they need it.
Yeah, I think they pick up more on the show than they do on the tell, right? I mean, there's a lot more on just the saying goes, more is caught, not taught, right? If we could just let them see, live out what it means to be a good, solid worker, a good, solid man, they're going to pick up the habits that it means to be a good, solid worker and a good, solid man, and then whatever works well for them, because everybody's going to be a little bit different in what they pick up and what they don't. So,
so true. Yeah.
Yeah. When obviously sports has been a big thing, a big centering thing for you and your boys. Kind of what was that something that they picked up naturally, or was that something that at the beginning you kind of pushed real hard to make sure that something was happening?
I don't really remember. Somehow we gravitated towards wrestling. Initially, I never really kind of spent that much time when they were young in sports. My wife and I were kind of resistant to giving up our weekends. Like, we would see these, when they were little, we would see these folks who had teenage children who were gone every weekend. Memorial Day, they were Saturday morning to Sunday night on the field somewhere. But we did gravitate towards baseball, soccer, wrestling. And I don't think that they certainly weren't forced into it. They enjoyed it. Owen, not so much. He's got a little bit of OCD, so he never really liked the kind of like wrestling around with another guy in a onesie. So which is why I kind of shifted to pole vaulting. But the other two stuck with it, and I think they really enjoyed it and the teamwork from it. I have a lot of friends who are, I wrestled with in college that I still stay close with. I don't watch a lot of sports. I've never really made time for it, other than, trying to catch wrestling when it's on TV and when nationals come around.
Yeah. I was a wrestler back in high school, but I was always so tiny. So I started wrestling in 8th grade. I was really good in 8th grade. I was like 14-2. And then
Nice.
9th grade, I was on varsity. So my second year wrestling, and I was thrown into varsity, and I was no longer very good anymore, right? Because all of a sudden I'm in a different class. You're going from 8th grade to 9th grade, from modified to varsity, and nothing in between. I was not prepared for that slap in the face that life brought me, and it just demoralized me. I felt like I wasn't capable of doing much of anything. And it made me. And I was real small, right? So I was like 96 pound for tournaments and 103 for your normal matches, and and that was even in 10th grade. I was the same thing. I'd cut down to 96 for the tournaments and 103 for your match. And it was just I was so demoralized after 9th grade that I was like, it was difficult to keep on going, and it made it tough for me. And I didn't have that connection with my parents on any level of sports. Like, my dad watched football and he played golf, but that was about it. And I was so tiny that I was terrible at football because I was afraid to get hit. Which is completely different now, because I've been hit a lot now, and I'm a lot bigger of a guy than I was then. But it's like, what a different world. And I'm trying to figure out how to better balance, help my kids be exposed to the right stuff and realize what happens when you do get hit, it's okay, and the challenges are okay, and the hits are going to happen, and this is how you work through them, and all this stuff, without going back to, again, being that overbearing parent that is no, you got to get back out there and do all these things. It's no, life is going to punch you in the face sometimes, and sports is a great way to learn that life punches you in the face sometimes, but also how to build that resilience.
Yeah, I think it's really a great point, and there's so much value in being in organized sports, and I think that so much of who I am comes from wrestling, because there's it gives you this ability to confront hard things, right? Hard conversations, scary scary interactions, whatever the case may be, because it's just two people out there on the mat, and it's not going to go well for one of the people generally, right? So it's just constant dose of of reality and how to overcome and work and do really hard things on purpose. I think that's one of our Go Bros kind of slogans for something. So there's so much that comes out of that, and then the doors that it opens. When I was in high school, I was an okay student. I had like a 3.0 average. I was supposed to go to Bloomsburg to play football. I do pretty well at States my senior year, and Penn State calls. And now I'm getting to go to Penn State. I didn't fill out a single college application, and I got to go to Penn State. My son is in this school that I still pinch myself to think how in the world could one of my kids have ended up at this place. Yeah. And it was really, the door was open up from wrestling. The older one is at the University of Maryland. He was a good student. But he didn't really have to apply to get in there, right? Because the sports kind of opened the doors. And in my business, when I'm interviewing somebody who was a college athlete, I will generally hire them 9 times out of 10 because they're competitive. They want to win. They know how to work with it as a team, and they're generally coachable, right? There's those fundamentals that they learn, and they learn how to deal with loss and adversity that just make them so much more effective in the business world because they have those things. So when the school that Kale goes to, actually the first year, every student has to play a sport in all 3 seasons. Whether they and it's interesting because it's this prep school, they have their A team, they have a B team, and then they have a C team for the kids who are just gonna, the kids who have never wrestled before that are gonna go and wrestle with the Blair team. They have their own section of the mat, and they do a really great job with it. But they just know there's so much value in getting them into organized sports. And if they find the one that they love, then they're gonna take off, and they're gonna do the rest. And you really don't have to do a whole lot except kind of put the guardrails on them sometimes as they're going.
I like that school does, you have to do something all 3 seasons, because there seems to be this push right now, and I'm not fully positive what I think one way or another. I'm a little partial to one side, but on especially all these travel sports where you get a kid that they're going to be a baseball player, and that is all they do. 7 seasons a year they're playing baseball, right? That's just it. And they never get to find out if they love something else or if they're better at something else. And then also you're seeing people with needing shoulder surgeries at 17 years old, and it's like, oh, I wonder why, right? But when you get kids that are playing 3 different sports, 4 different sports, and learning what it is to be on different types of teams, and different things that you're good at and what you're not good at, what you really love and what you don't love, and all the different pieces, to me, I think that creates a much more well-rounded person, a much more well-rounded thought process on things, because you're unlikely, you could be the number 1 in one of the sports. Unlikely, because there's only one number 1, but you could be the number 1 in one of the sports, but you're not likely to be the number 1 in all 3 of the sports that you're playing, which means you get to now feel taste a little bit of that humble pie and realize that it's okay. Other people out there are better than you, and this is part of how life goes. And this is what it means to lose, and this is what it means to have to work extra hard to do better at things. And so has that school given the thesis behind why they do various different sports, or is it? Let me pass that over to you. Kind of learn a little bit more on that.
Yeah. So. I don't know. I think that they see it, and I think from what I can tell, a lot of the prep schools kind of do similar things because they see the value in it. And the school there's such high placement in the top Ivy League schools around the country that they know that they're, from the day the kids are getting there, they have a very impressive resume just to get into the door to go to the school, and that they're working on going to Harvard, Princeton, whatever the case may be, that it's going to take a lot to get in the door there. And I think that they know that it goes to not only building the resume, but building better people because of those things. And to your point, society today, we're so hell-bent on winning that you take your kids to Pee-wee baseball, where you expect, all right, I wasn't a baseball player. I can't throw a ball to save my life. These folks are going to teach my son how to play baseball. Well, no, they're actually not. They're going to sweep him aside to this team where the kids that the dads and moms aren't paying $1,000 a month to send them to and they're going to be on this team that's going to get annihilated by the rest of the league. and the elite players are going to go and win the league title, or that's the goal every year. And there is no that elementary opportunity to kind of learn these sports and just figure out which ones you want to have fun with, because they specialize so early.
Yeah.
And if your kids want to be competitive in high school, you almost have to, because it's the kids that there's so many people now that, with all this information out there, that know that this is the recipe to make it happen. It is a really interesting time we're in from that standpoint, because the injuries are through the roof with just specializing in the sports. And
what was the conversation like?
I don't know how you break it.
Yeah, well, I know how you do on an individual level, but I don't know how you do on a larger scale, right? What was the conversation like with you and your wife when it came to sending your 16-year-old to a boarding school type of thing, right? Like, what was that conversation like? How did that come up, and how was that decision kind of worked through?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the schools where we were in Maryland, there was so much to be desired down there. And academically and athletically, we were going to the public high school in Ocean City. And what we found when we got there is that Ocean City is a big beach town, Ocean City, Maryland. Yep. And the teachers use their teaching jobs for benefits. And as soon as beach season hits, they're in the bars and the restaurants working, because they can make bank in the bars and restaurants in beach season. So we moved down there when Owen was in 11th grade, I think. We're going into 11th grade. It was maybe 10th grade. And Kale was in just finishing elementary school. And Owen's first spring, his history teacher at 1:00 says, "All right, you guys can all go home. I got to go to work." She's going to the bar or to the restaurant to open her restaurant. And they all either, so it was, and he was kind of stuck and finished well. He was able to continue his pole vaulting and do really well with it, even though we took him away from this club that he was a part of and these resources. But for Kale, we knew there was time. So about less than a year in being down there, I knew that we were going to have to figure something else out. So started really thinking about what that was. He was approached by some other prep schools that wouldn't have been boarding, and we were kind of starting to get in our head, there may be a really long commute. Maybe we need to have him staying with someone. This opportunity came up here where it started to look like, all right, well, North Jersey could be an option. Schools are phenomenal up there. And that was the year where it was about a week before his 9th grade year would have started that we decided we're going to pull him out of the public school. We're going to put him into the prep school down there, which was a phenomenal prep school. We're going to put him in there for a year so we can really figure this thing out. He redid 8th grade. We started to see the benefits of the prep education, and just in how they try to develop these well-rounded individuals, how they encourage them to communicate with adults, like adults, right? All those things that you mentioned in the beginning. And then he's a big boy. When he was at that time, when he was getting ready to go into 9th grade, he was 190 pounds, and you couldn't tell him apart from my 21-year-old who was wrestling for Maryland. So he got the attention of Blair Academy and at a tournament somewhere, and then they started calling, and they were really persistent to let me know that they really would love for him to come to school up there. So we went through the process. We applied to a bunch of different prep schools as we were trying to figure out how work and this was going to all work out. And it just kind of happened organically through conversations like, we're going to do this, and it's looking like it's going to be Blair. We're going to move up there, so we'll be within driving distance, so we could live somewhere that we could drive them back and forth. And they do offer day students the opportunity. And our thought was, if we're going to do this, maybe we should really just go all in for the full experience, because what they're doing to develop them there it's really, I didn't want to, if we were going to do it and we were going to spend the money and kind of go all in, like we wanted it to be the best possible experience for us. So we decided, let's try it for a year, go ahead and do the boarding thing. And if it doesn't work out, we'll just do commuting from there. He couldn't be happier there. And because we're not that far away, we can see him on weekends. During the season, we see him pretty regularly. So that part is hard. um, having him home for the summer was great. But I do think for his growth and development, like I I fully expect him to go and start some company that just takes off and that he like
Yeah.
changes the world.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah,
So
there's one down here. I forgot what it's called off the top of my head, but it's down in Bradenton, IMG, and they're very focused on like the sports and that type of stuff. They're a really big golf one too. There's got a lot of golf stuff there, but that's one of those other boarding ones. And there's a guy that I always listen to. I say always listen to, and I can't remember his name, but he's a former CIA agent. But one of his sons goes down to IMG, and I was like, it's so close that I was thinking to myself, wonder if it would be good to put him in there, and that because they do boarding and non-boarding side of the house. So the boarding thing has always been like especially now that I homeschool, like it'd be almost uncomfortable for me to be away that long, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know, but it's got such great opportunity when it comes to different sports and when it comes to, the way that they set up and structure their day to be around, again, not only kids your age, but other older kids and the coaches and just the pure dedication they have to the kids. So I've often wondered if the opportunity arose, what my thoughts would be on it. So it's interesting to hear kind of how that all came out for you.
yeah, I've heard of the IMG Academy. There's a book called It Takes What It Takes. I don't know if you've ever heard it.
I have not.
I think Trevor Moab. He's a sports site. He was a kind of a mindset guy for Russell Wilson and a number of professional athletes. It's a phenomenal book. I actually was listening to it when we were up in Vermont for the mastermind in January.
Yep.
But he worked at the IMG Academy, so I got a little bit of exposure to it. I actually thought about like digging into it and kind of seeing more about what it was about. The thing for me, like when we started visiting, and we would we would be given tours by these 10th graders or 11th graders at these schools, and to speak to them and to see how they carry themselves in the way that they, the way that they can hold a conversation. It's just mind blowing that these kids that they're not even driving yet. And they're just like, so there is something to it. And, if it's something that you're thinking about, the best thing to do is just to go and visit and spend some time and set up a tour and meet the people, because that really helps you kind of make some of those decisions, because they are not easy decisions to make.
Yeah, it is by far. It's just like, doing the homeschool was not easy a decision to make either, right? My wife and I talked about it forever as we were trying to figure all this out. And, to your point when you were like, hey, let's do it for a year, kind of see how it goes. The same thing I said. I was like, let's do it for a year, see how it goes. Like if I am just really not built for this, or if the kids really just don't like it, then we can adjust, right? And it was one of those, we started Adam early. He was very ready. He's a December baby, so he like passed the cutoff, quote unquote, to get into kindergarten. So I had to wait another year. But I got him into a private Christian school, and they were like, "No, like he's ready. Let's do it." So we got him in, and he was super ready. And he's he's in 5th grade right now, if you want to call it 5th grade. But like when we're doing like reading comprehension stuff, he's in like middle of 7th grade for a lot of reading comprehension stuff. He's been he tested 8th grade level for various other things. So like I get to tailor his education to what he needs right now, and I absolutely love it. So now I can't imagine trying to adjust that to go, oh man, well no, you're stuck doing the same thing that everybody else is. But at something like this, that's not that quite the same, right? Because there's so much more personalization in a school like that. So I think if I were to go back to a traditional, quote unquote, traditional school where it's not homeschool, it would have to be at something that's similar to that. That's a little bit more dedicated to a whole well-rounded human.
Yeah. I guess when you homeschool your children, is there a certain point where then you do assume that they will go into a school program, or would you take them all the way through high school?
I don't know yet. I think that we're doing the year by year just to kind of see where it goes, and I've talked to a lot of homeschool dads, especially. I mean, I've talked to moms too, but just to kind of get an idea where they're at. And some of them where they've had their kids, they've had one kid go back into traditional school, and the rest of them wanted to homeschool. But it was dependent on what that kid's needs were, or what that kid's desires were. Some of them were, it was I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he's another GoBundance guy. But he was like, hey, my son really is competitive in this sport, and that's what he wants to do. So let's move him into school, because they've got a really good program for that, and it's getting him a little bit more exposure. So they did. They put him into that, and and now he's in normal school and he's doing his thing. This just became that point in time where they wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And it worked out well for the kids. So I'm just kind of waiting for that with them to kind of see, hey, obviously this is only year 2, so we'll see how it goes, and they're still young. So,
Right.
I'll just keep playing it by ear. Like if golf stays to be their thing, most schools around other than IMG don't really have a whole like this really wonderful golf program. So it'll probably be something that we just kind of stick to. If it's sports that drives him, then it's probably going to be just continue on doing what you're doing if golf's what's driving you. But who knows? I have no idea where it's going to go. Or maybe all of a sudden my wife will retire and she'll be like, there's no way that I want to homeschool. I just kind of want to, okay, all right, well, I guess we'll adjust fire, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I wish I had
have time because it's 5th grade, right?
Exactly.
You said he's about 5th grade now.
Yeah.
So you have plenty of time to figure it out. Yeah.
Exactly.
Very
And that's kind of where I'm at. Is it, I'll take it day by day, week by week, and see where it goes. Especially after my wife retires, that'll really change some things up a little bit, and on how we go about what we're doing. So time will tell. Is where we'll keep that at the moment. So
makes sense.
But as you've been kind of working through all of this now, you've been going through this growth in yourself over the last year. What has that done kind of with your relationship with your wife? How has that grown? How has that changed? Over the last year, you've everything we've talked about, you've been working a lot on yourself. What has that done with your relationship with your wife?
Yeah, so we did things a little bit less traditionally, or maybe it's more traditional than people let on. So my wife's 10 years older than me. When I met her in state college, my junior year. So my senior year, I graduated, had my first son Chase 2 weeks later. I like to say that he came with us to nationals my senior year.
There you go.
And then 2 weeks after that, I started with NVR. So it was very much, very much prescriptive as far as the fact that we were together early on. And we have had a really strong relationship over the last 22 years. I think we do a really good job communicating and figuring things out together. I realized, through Stephen Covey, is that if you want a better relationship with your wife, you need to just love her, right? You need to stop judging and stop critiquing and just love them, and do it without kind of the expectation of reciprocation. So last year, or the year before, maybe, I forget exactly when it started, I really took that to heart and started taking more risks of just trying to demonstrate and show her that I loved her, cared about her, and I really wasn't trying to change her anymore. And that was game changing.
Yeah.
So big kind of milestone in my life that kind of showed me that I'm really on the right track here. And
that's awesome.
Need to keep going because of all this amazing stuff that's happening.
Yeah, there seems to be so much positivity that's been changing in your life, and the growth that you're on, and
Yeah, my in my background here, this is like my most recent accomplishment. I'm super excited about it. So one of the things that changed last year is I realized the importance of creating a 5-year vision. And I knew it was on my to-do list for years. I just didn't really know how to do it, or could never figure out how. Found a book that kind of gave me an outline that I used to create it. I read it every week for the last 12 months, and it really kind of helped me. I started seeing the stuff on it coming true. I redid it this year in July when I was a year in, and the one that I have this year is 100 times better than the one from last year. And also, I think maybe when I joined GoBundance, I heard Matt King speak the first time about his vision board. I was like, well, I got to create a vision board, but how do I do that? So I have this great vision now, and it's got these kind of 6 or 8 different areas that I want my life to be at, and like really clearly articulated in 5 years. And then I came up with this, where at the end of each of the spokes is a picture that kind of represents where I want to be 5 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
And as I kind of take action towards these goals, I can put pictures of those actions out the line. So pretty pumped about that. Below that is my first ultra marathon in the first week of August. I did a 50 miler with the boys. It was super, super fun. Such a cool thing. They paced me, each of them, for about 3 to 4 hours of the run. We're talking about doing 100 miler next year that they're going to pace me on. But yeah, I was really excited by the creation of that. And my wife's even letting me have it up in kind of the entryway of our house here.
That's so cool.
She's pumped about it as well.
That is really cool. I just drew that out so I could try to remember to do something like that, because like the traditional vision board of like going into a magazine, ripping something out, or printing some off the internet and pinning it there, I don't know, it's just never really spoke to me. But like what I'm seeing there is really cool, and I'm picturing it up here, like take down some of this New England Patriots stuff, not that because I want to get rid of it, but because that's a great spot for me to put all that stuff, and I'll hang that New England Patriots stuff in the living room so everybody could see it. But putting something like that up there to really like make that vision alive, and kind of, I love the pictures on that path towards that success. Like that's what a way to kind of just pull in what they're doing, or what you're doing, that is getting you towards that goal. Like that's really cool. I like that a lot. I've never heard that. What book did you read that you got that from?
So I listened. So this is a little bit of a longer story. I don't know how much time we have, but so I started over 2 years ago, I listened to Grant Cardone's book, The 10X Rule.
Mm-hmm.
And in there, he made a comment that CEOs read 60 books a year. I was like, I listen to a lot of books, and that's why I run so much. I wonder how many I listen to. I wonder if I could do 60. And the last 2 years, I've done like on average, probably 75.
Nice.
And just like mass consuming information. And I'm finding, I really start to get, it feels like, it feels a little bit, I don't know, it feels a little bit uncomfortable even to say, but it almost feels like enlightenment, starting to really just kind of understand how the world works, how people work. All of these books on on development, the themes are all the same. They're just packaged in different ways, right? And there's the principles are simple, that you have a morning routine, you're intentional about your week, you're intentional about your day, you focus on the things that are most important every day. And if you know that the things that you're working on every day and every week are going towards your greater good, your larger goal, then every day is filled with so much purpose that you wake up in the morning, it feels like you're on drugs. I mean, that's the way I would describe it for myself. And so fast forwarding, I got to book 60 last year, and it was the 5 a.m. Club. And in that book, it says you really shouldn't mass consume books. You should read one at a time and really take your time to implement. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to implement this morning power hour that they talk about in the 5 a.m. Club. And in the last 20 minutes, I'm going to re-listen to this book. I'm going to like annotate it, and I'm going to implement every piece of it into my life every week. So I'm getting through maybe 60 minutes of it a week, and I'm implementing whatever's in there into my life. The next book I hit was the 12-week year, and that's really where the vision came from. And the 12-week year is kind of the concept of businesses make business plans, and day one in January, the world could change and that whole business plan could be garbage, right? So you really, if you focus on your goals in 12-week blocks, you can accomplish anything. And it's really proven true for me. So that was the next one where I really took it, and I followed that same process with the 5 a.m. Club. Last 20 minutes of my power hour every week, I just worked on reading, listening to small segments, writing notes, thinking about how I could implement it in my life. And in chapter 13 of that book, I know this because when I help like mentor friends or people that I meet, I start them here. There's a really simple outline of how to write your vision. And it starts with, listing 7 characteristics and ranking yourself similar to our life happiness index.
Yep.
These 7 kind of areas of life, rank yourself 1 to 10, figure out of those scores, which 3 are most important to you. And then highlight those. And then you kind of have that in your head. And then you go to the next step, and there's like 9 items where you just do a free writing exercise under the item of everything you want to have, do, and be, or everything that you can think of that you would want to have, do, and be. And then you take that, and then you sit down and you just write your little story. And it's, my first one was maybe 2 paragraphs. The one that I created this year is like 2 pages.
Wow. But
it's like a vivid vision for my life. And I read it every week, and it's coming true faster than I could have ever imagined. Last year, I wanted to be under 200 pounds by the time I turned 50, because all of this kind of revolves around, I think when I turn 50, I'll stop working for the company that I work for, and kind of be ready to do something else. My wife, because she's a little bit older, I want to make sure we have enough time to spend doing the things that we're doing. I really love my job, and I'm working on this kind of culture initiative there that's very different from what what corporate America is used to.
Mm-hmm.
And I suspect that what we're creating is going to be something that's pretty cool that I'll be able to write a book about and really be proud of what I've created. So, but yeah, over the last year, one of my big rocks for the year that came out of all this was to kind of really, really dial in and understand health and nutrition and fitness, because I have a lot of injuries from wrestling in college, and keeping my joints feeling good was really important. And getting under the 200 pounds I thought would be a 5-year goal. The last 2 weeks I've been under 200 pounds. I've dialed in, like, I understand nutrition. I have a diet that I'm really excited about, feeling great. I ran a 50-mile race. I was a heavyweight in college. Like, heavyweights don't generally do that type of thing.
Yeah.
So I was pretty pumped about that.
Yeah, that is, those are going to be 2 books that I'm going to have to do: the 12-week year and the 5 a.m. club. They're on my list. I will have them downloaded by the end of the day for sure. And I've also heard the same thing on the book side of the house. As far as I was talking about it with my pod, they were like, "Oh yeah, I want to knock out 15 books this year," or whatever it was. And I was like, "How about we shift the thought process of, I want to pull at least 15 solid nuggets out of the books I'm reading and implement them into my life this year." Because, you could read 15 books and great, I read 15 books and I put it on my list that I read 15 books, but did you get anything from it? Did you implement anything from it? Did you do anything about it? What has been going on? It's the same thing. My son's reading the Jocko Willink books, the kids ones. And, he's rereading them now because he's reading them to his little brother. But it's like, okay, what are we doing with the knowledge that we're gaining, right? Like, what are you going to do about it? Like, where's the fitness? And I mean, my kids in fitness, that's something they love doing. They're jumping around all the time, doing push-ups, doing jumping jacks, like, punching each other, of course. But it's like, what are the nuggets we're pulling out? So I love that you've adjusted that, those last 20 minutes. And that's something that I used to always listen to books while I was riding my lawnmower, because it's like, what else am I going to be doing? Like, I'm just sitting on a lawnmower. I might as well be doing something that's useful, right? So I'd put in my headphones and I'd get, and I listen to it at like 3 times speed. So I get through a book and a half before I'm done mowing the lawn. And it was like, okay, sometimes I'll stop and take some notes, but what am I truly doing at the end of that? Like, am I actually doing anything with that book that I just read? Am I actually implementing it? So I love what you're doing there at the beginning of that morning routine. And that's going to be, now you're going to force me to go actually start journaling, and at the end of it, listen to the book and write some notes down for the book too. So love it.
Yeah, it's really incredible what's come out of it. Like, what you'll find is, if you really, and I still mass consume them because of the themes. And I think what I'm creating in my business is, when I'm running, I'm listening to audiobooks, and I find something, like, I'll zone out and be daydreaming, but I come up with the magic that I can take to work while I'm getting these ideas, thinking about other ideas. And it kind of helps me find a way to make them work for me. The ones that really resonate are the ones where I'll really kind of dial in. I found now with AI, you can just ask it to give you the summary that you heard while you were running, just make a note, like, remind me to find out what that quote was from David Goggins in this book, or whatever the case may be. But so these 12-week year goals are unbelievable, because if you can really articulate what you want to happen, and you create this 12-week goal, it tells you how to make a game plan to make it happen. It doesn't add a whole bunch of time to your day. It doesn't take away time from the rest of your life, right? Because you're just reprioritizing the things that you're doing. But the goals that I've set in these 12-week years, and I've gone through it probably like for 6 or 7 quarters now. If I don't get to the goal, I've moved my life so far forward in that area that it doesn't really matter that I didn't get the goal. Because I'm either gonna do it in the next session, or I've got the gold, the nuggets that I needed, and then it kind of the intentionality that came out of the 5 a.m. club is, from those 12-week goals, there's these, it's essentially you set your goal, you create a list of actions, and then you break it up over a 12-week period. And then you just make sure you do what you say you're going to do every week. You do those 5 to 7 items. And then out of those goals, I find that there's these things that become part of that meaningful, like my weekly accountability list. Like, they just stay on that list, and I do them every week, no matter what. I set that list on Sunday. I use the daily 5. I identify the 5 things that I'm going to do that day. I'll pull some of the things off of my to-do list from work or from my personal life, but that weekly accountability list will be done by the end of the week. And because of this routine that I've gotten myself in, it seems really regimented, but it's just given me so much freedom and so much ability to spend like quality time with my wife, with my kids, and really focus on the things that are so important to me in life.
Yeah.
Even though I'm in this position where most of the guys in my role are working 60 hours a week and just kind of pulling their hair out, I just feel like I have so much time. I'm probably the only guy that's ever been in this position that should go and tell the company, I don't think I have enough vacation because I need more.
That's funny. And
that's really the thing I struggled with recently is how do I go and tell them I need more vacation to stay here?
Well, I mean, you and I are hanging out in the middle of the workday having this conversation, right? So it's you're doing all right, it seems. So and to your point, as far as the, it seems so regimented, but it provides such freedom. That's the whole Jocko Willink's whole thing with discipline equals freedom, right? Like when you know what the right thing to do is, and you're disciplined about it, it provides the freedom that you need to go and do the stuff that's the right things to do, and you just do it because it's freedom. Like it's you're on the right track, and you know you are, so you're just going through it. So I absolutely love it.
Yeah, Jocko's extreme ownership is on our top 10 list. Any employee that we hire to work for me in my division has to read that book first, because that's where everything starts with what we do.
Yeah, absolutely love it. Well, Pete, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on and chatting and getting to learn a little bit more about you and how you've been operating and the changes. Congrats on the massive amount of shifts you've done over the last year. And I hope that's an encouragement to anybody listening that is thinking to themselves, oh, no, you can't, and this is going to come off wrong because you're not an old dog, but you can't teach an old dog new tricks type of thing. But like, you can always improve on who you are and what you're doing, whether you have a kid who's, a couple kids in college, or whether you're me and still has a 1-year-old running around the house. Like, you can always improve your position, who you are, what you're doing. And I am very pleased that we got to have this conversation. I thank you so much for jumping on. I know you mentioned before we got on that that you don't do much of the social media stuff, but if somebody heard something that they like, and maybe they want to be mentored by you, you mentioned that you do some of that. What's the best place for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can. I get notifications through LinkedIn. I try to look at them before I don't spend a lot of time on there. Definitely through GoBundance, but I am on LinkedIn. They can just look me up there. And the mentoring is something. Another one of my favorite books, The Go-Giver, talks about you give more in value than you receive in payment, and there's no limit to what you can do in life. And I really that really resonates with me, because I just love seeing like people. Like, I know that if you go and start journaling today, 6 months from now when I bump into you at the next GoBundance, about 3 months from now, you're going to be like, I can't believe this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what I would have ever done without this. Yeah. So it's so cool to see people do that it's all the fulfillment that you could ask for. So yeah, Absolutely. if anybody's interested in chatting or learning a little bit more about how some of this has happened for me, I guess LinkedIn would be the best way.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you very much, Pete. If you can stick around for a second after this, but thank you everybody for listening. Please like, subscribe, comment, do all of that fun stuff, and we will see everybody on the next episode.
Thank you so much for listening to the BizDad Podcast. We hope you found some value in your time here with us, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode. If you've enjoyed today's show, please subscribe and share so you and your friends won't miss our upcoming episodes. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Rumble, where we continue these discussions and share more valuable content. Be the dad you know you need to be and run your business in a way you're proud to share with your kids. Keep crushing it.